Cool. Let's go ahead and get started with our next section. So now that we've got our app kind of set up, let's set up kind of the rest of the skeleton of our project here, right? So a few things that I really like to do with my source folders. I generally like to, and again, React is very flexible. We've seen this with other apps where you don't necessarily even have to have a page. You can just have a bunch of components that work together. I could even write most of my app out in app.tsx and then just add one component to actually process some data. We've seen with our kind of learning React lesson that you can actually get away with basically using regular HTML and then just using React for like one part of your HTML, CSS, the website, etc. Really depends on how you want to do it, and lots of flexibility there. But we're going to be doing this whole thing in React, and one of the things that when I'm doing big React projects, to help me kind of stay organized, because otherwise you can just have a bunch of JavaScript files, or in this case TypeScript TSX files, all in one place, is to put them in different folders based on kind of their main function. So we're actually going to make a whole bunch of these, and they might not even actually have anything in them yet. We're going to have an API folder. We'll get to that down the road a bit. We're going to have components, which will be a pretty big folder. We have lots of stuff going on in there. We're going to have custom hooks, we're going to have just one thing in there down the road. Pages, which is kind of where we're going to get started here. And that should be about it for that. And this is where we're actually going to be setting up our route logic too, because this runs different. Yep, this runs a little different than Vue. So we're going to do one more thing here. We're going to do a new folder, and we're going to, one more here. New folder, and we're going to do Redux. So we're going to be using Redux to handle our state, and we're going to take care of that way down the road. But I just wanted to have that stuff all in existence now so that I don't have to keep creating stuff down the road. I have a pretty good idea of what app I want to make here. And so, again, API is going to be interested in, that's going to be a file that actually gets data and brings it back. Assets, obviously, are just going to be static things like images, or any other kind of media, things that I'm going to need for my app to run well. My components are going to be all of the little pieces of logic, the different functions basically that make my bigger application work. We're going to talk about custom hooks. We did not make any of these in our other React videos. So we're going to learn to make a custom hook there. And pages is going to be kind of our next place that we're going to end up heading towards. So let's go ahead and we're going to create a new file. This is going to be called home.tsx. This will immediately be angry. And so what we're going to do is RFC. And again, if you have ES7 plus React, Redux, React native snippets, if you have that installed, then it should automatically do that. Our next problem is we need to, I believe, export this. So we're going to create a new file called index.tsx. And what this will do is this is going to be the page where we actually export our file. And I think I formatted that correctly. That should be all that we need. Yep. Cool. So at this point, what we should be able to do in here is import home and just press tab, and that should finish that for us, but there's your file path. And what we'll do instead here is I'm going to put in home. And what we should see is that built just fine. You can see that that's just happy and not an issue. We should be able to come here, and now we have home. And because home is a child component of our div, and it's all that this is doing is returning some text, I believe. Yeah, it's just that div there. So that ends up being blue as well. So actually, we're probably going to end up getting rid of this for the time being. And eventually, we're going to use a lot more interesting stuff there. But yeah, so let's create one more page here. And we're going to call this about.tsx. And we're going to obviously do RFC again here. And it will say about. So that way we just know which one is which. And we're going to have to export this as well. From about. So there's that. So that's exported. Everything's happy. We should be able to import about here. And then I should also be able to do about. We should see about appearing right underneath. So we got these two components. That's great. And again, I'm just going to pop open my inspector, my dev tools here. just to go ahead and start getting a good idea of what's going on and be able to keep track of which is which, because it gets really pretty gnarly pretty quick with JSX and larger projects, figuring out what is what exactly. Cool. So let's go ahead and get started with our router. So this is going to be new to us. This is going to be a little bit different. I have the documentation lost. I believe it's in my course references front end. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I'm just going to copy paste this. Go back. Super. And we're going to open another one here real quick. Front end. Oh, and we want to pop open main concepts. So here we go. So this is the documentation for it. Again, I am really pushing you to spend some time with the documentation. Main concepts is a really, really great little video, or a little great document. What does React Router do? How does it help you build your app? What's a router anyways? This is really good stuff. The three main jobs that React Router does is it subscribes to and manipulates the history stack, right? So this is like when you visit a website, your browser remembers where you've been, right? And not like in a creepy way, but just in like if I'm here and I click back, it just instantly remembers, right? Like there it says, oh, I've already been here. It's got that cached. It's ready to go. That's part of what we're talking about here. Is how do you tell a browser whether or not to remember it or not for the time being, as well as like, oh, you're logged in, things like that. It remembers lots of stuff for you. We just have to tell it to remember. And then matching the URL to your routes, right? Because with React, you may have noticed we're not using A tags for our links, right? And so as a result, we're going to be using these routes and some other stuff that React Router gives us. And then rendering a nested UI from the route matches. And so that's good. It's going to basically be telling React what to do. And so we're going to be looking at some of this later on, but that's kind of the main job of React Router is handling what the URL does versus what our app does and how those two things really kind of interact. That's the whole point of this. We've got a little tutorial as well. So if you want to spend some time messing around with the React Router tutorial, highly recommend that as well. I made it about 2/3 of the way through before I got bored, but it taught me what I basically needed to. And this is actually how I ended up learning React Router. And so there's that. We're going to go back to looking at our app here. Loading React Elementary. Why are you upset? Okay, great. Cool. So what are we going to do now? Let's go ahead and start messing around with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to import a bunch of specific packages. Now remember that when you're importing a whole component, we don't need curly braces. When we're importing pieces of things, right, like objects, then we do need those curly braces. So in this case, we're going to be, or just functions, right? So we're going to do browser, router. We're going to have routes and route from React Router DOM. And our little computer will be very sad and unhappy. It will say, I don't know what that is. Well, that's because we didn't install. It's going to be npm install React Router DOM. And it should do that. Hopefully it doesn't take too long, but that should end up getting added to package JSON. And now that goes away. Everyone's happy. And that is right there. So that's good. Great, wrong file. Cool, so that's there. One other thing too to keep in mind is that our app.tsx, we're going to be using this basically. This component will be used for router level logic. So that kind of thing. So we want to keep in mind that the app is going to be kind of our big like filter, things that the entire app need to talk about or the entire app need to have installed are going to be here. And then we're going to wonder and concern ourselves with more detailed things in other components, right? So like our homepage is going to have its own set of information that it needs, but there are some things that our entire app needs to have access to. Eventually, if we were to use Firebase to host this, we would want to attach Firebase to this because this is kind of the top level app logic, right? The main.tsx is just kind of branching between the two. We can do some stuff into this one as well, but we'll get there when we get there. But right now we want to worry about our routes, that kind of thing here. And again, you want to think of this kind of as like a tree again, right? So this is like the trunk of the tree. Maybe the roots are in the index.html and the main.tsx file, but this is the real trunk of the tree. And, we're going to apply a bunch of stuff to this file. Great. So we've got our home and about pages. We've got our browser router, our routes, and our route. Brandon, what on earth do those things do? That is a great question, and we're going to end up getting rid of these div tags. So I'm just going to do Command D to both of those, and I'm going to write browser router. And so now that's happy and being used. This might break our app. So far, so good. But you can see that stuff inside of it is actually automatically put in router, and it didn't quite do what we wanted it to, so that's fine. We have to be a bit more specific. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap both of these. I'm going to do Command-Shift-P and emit wrap with abbreviation. And I'm going to put routes like that. So that's good. And then instead of these, I guess I could have just gotten rid of them. Instead of these, what I will do is I'm going to create route object for each of these. Route path equals just a slash element equals, and this is where things get a little bit funky. And now I'm going to put the home component in there, and then I will just close that off. And so what this is saying is that when the URL is at a slash, then I want to render the home component, right? So this is all going to be occurring inside of whatever my app's URL is, because we might not even know what that URL is yet. Obviously right now it's going to be localhost, but it's very nice. We're not having errors here, so there were errors, and I finished it, and now everything's happy. I'm going to create one more of these. Come on. My clicking skills are slacking. And we're going to have about, and we're going to have about. And that should be what we need here. So we come back here, this should be like this. So now it's rendering home, and if I type about here, now it's got the about page, right? And so that's pretty neat. And we can go back and forth, and you can see that just based on the URL, we get different stuff rendered here. So that's basically what React Router DOM does. We're going to see some other stuff working with this in the future. There's cool things you can do with it as far as like what you can have information passed from the URL passed into it, and it will render differently, right? So if you're like user ID 1, that gets put in the URL using query parameters, which we'll talk about down the road. You can put that number in there, and that gets passed to React Router DOM, and it will show you a different profile based on that link, that kind of thing. We can actually even generate new URLs when somebody creates a new account, for example. And like, oh, I'm user 7050, right? It will actually generate a new URL for that user and render differently, which is really neat. Really cool stuff. All right. Because again, we're thinking about that user's ID as data for a function, and that function will take that data and it will execute something based on that input. But it's the same process, right? Every user is going to have a profile, but then that's what we're working with here. Cool stuff. All right. So we got that now. That's groovy. We're gonna make one more page here, and this is literally gonna be all of our pages. And so it's gonna be dashboard.tsx. And so RFC, ta-da, great. And then we need to export it. Export from dashboard. And I can put that in here as well. So just copy another one of these. Nope. And that needs to be a lowercase. I need to import it too. There we go. And now we have that. So we should be able to type /dashboard, and it should render our dashboard.tsx. So the first thing we're going to do, let's make a nice little homepage. And this really shouldn't be a super complicated thing here. All that we're going to do, and this is where we're going to start actually using our Tailwind. We haven't really done anything with Tailwind yet, besides make something blue, I think. And so now we're going to actually start using some nice Tailwind. Oh, I just realized that that's okay. This is a good way of thinking about it for right now. So let's go ahead and, I don't need that either. Just cleaning up my original code here. I had some other ideas about what I wanted to do down the road, and then I changed my mind. So we're gonna actually put something in our assets folder. I actually have 4 images. They will be in Google Classroom or attached to this video somehow. And what I'm going to do is take this image, and I'm just gonna move it over here for now, which is cheating, but you will end up putting these mountains in later. So we have this very nice picture of these mountains, and I don't need that there. But that's gonna be our background image for this page. So we can go back to home here. Over there. All right, great. And what we're going to do is, instead of rendering home here and press enter, I'm going to put another div in here. I don't know if this will work. It does. Hooray. Cool. Flex. I'm going to do place items center. That's a really nifty one. That's basically, inside of this, what you end up getting is with place items. So this is another really nice thing about Tailwind, right? Is if you have the plugins for it and stuff, which I don't think I have any Tailwind specific Tailwind snippets or anything like that. Oh, maybe I do. Cool. You want this. Tailwind, CSS, and IntelliSense. This will give you all of your suggestions. It's really nifty, and the other nice thing is that I can hover over it and it will tell me what the thing I made is actually doing, which is also really great for education. So even if you're not going to use that, I'm going to use it because I think it's great. And so this .flex thing is going to end up rendering display flex. So that's how this works. And if at any point in this video you're like, okay, Brandon, you wrote a whole bunch of Tailwind and I don't know what on earth you're talking about, or what that actually meant, just hover over it and it will tell you the CSS attributes, right? Which is really great. By the way, place items center is not one I've used yet. All this does is it says justify content center and align items center. So it literally just puts things in the middle, which is pretty good, pretty cool. And I don't think we're quite done with this yet. So we're gonna do, yeah, the height is the screen. Yay. And then inside of this, we will say, we'll have an H3, and we're going to say, welcome. I can't read that. My screen's too small over there. Welcome to the phone book. There we go. That makes sense. I guess we could have just said welcome we're going to do lowercase, to the phone book. And by the way, this might not look as pretty as maybe you would dream of when we're done here. But my reason for doing this is that I want to show you the tools and let you be the designer ultimately. So if you don't like the way that I make things, that's fine. I will not be upset at all. But I do want to show you the tools and how they work, and kind of give you the freedom to kind of make your own choices here. Up top here, let's do, we're going to have flex row, justify center, MX auto. So this is going to be set the margins left and right to auto, your X axis and your Y axis. Background cover, we don't have a background set yet, and background fixed. Okay, what does that mean? Well, we did not actually finish this file yet, so we're going to add a styles tag. What? I thought you said a long time ago, never use styles. There are times where it's appropriate. And actually, there's new tools with Tailwind called the just-in-time compiler, and they have like square brackets. I haven't figured out how to do those yet because it's a very new thing. And so this is a slightly older version. It will work just the same, using style tags. And so we're going to have two of these here. We're going to have background image. We're going to set this equal to, we'll use tick marks. This will say, it's our URL. And now we can write a JavaScript variable name in here. So we're going to eventually import something called background. And what we're going to do is import background from, and then we're going to do assets / mountains.jpg. And that should actually end up, there we go. So now it's rendered, now it's happy. Let's see what our app looks like. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. We now have mountains in the background. The page doesn't scroll at all, and that's perfectly fine. We just have this, and that's all good. So there you go. That's how you put a background image in, and we're already doing all right. Okay, so that's our mountain picture there. By the way, I got it from Unsplash. So if you're looking for other images you might want to use, Unsplash is a very good place to look for free open source images. All right. Great. Let's see. Yeah. Great. So that's all we needed from that. That is our homepage. That's all that we're doing there. Wait, Brandon, that's it? There's no buttons or anything? Nope, because we're actually gonna put those someplace else. We're gonna put those here inside the browser router. We're going to end up placing a navbar. Okay, and it will be mad because it's not installed yet. So I'm going to comment that out for right now, because what we need to do is we need to make a navbar component. And this might be, it should be fine. Okay, now you're mad. Navbar.tsx. And we're going to have to also export it with an index.tsx. Same as before, okay? So I have to export everything from /navbar, and it's gonna be mad. There's nothing getting exported. All right, fine. Okay, now we've got our export. And again, you might be wondering, why on earth do we have to do this? I never had to do this in JavaScript. And the reason for that is, again, TypeScript really wants us to be specific. It wants us to be sure that we're using what we're supposed to. The other nice part about this is that if I can have a navbar component and a page called navbar, and they're both TSX files, and they're both exporting something called navbar, TypeScript will get grouchy, right? And that should set off alarm bells, just me explaining what that idea was, right? Saying, why would you name multiple things the same thing? And obviously for really big applications, this can get quite annoying. Trying to name every part of your app something unique, especially if you're working with a team and somebody else already used all the cool names. It's very annoying. But it's also a really good thing, because this means that we're not going to accidentally import somebody else's project or edit it or delete it or whatever, right? Everything's going to have a guaranteed unique name across our TypeScript application. And so this export thing is saying, I'm specifically telling this navbar to export, right? If I didn't export it and it was just its own thing, first of all, I don't know why that would be in your app. But second of all, like if you're not going to use it, why is it there? But second of all, this makes it very explicit what we're doing with it and where we are sending it, right? So this is just going to say export it, so that if I can access the components folder, now I can access the navbar.tsx. And so we just have this here. We can go back to our app level thing here. I'm going to, we're going to do this for import pages, and then import components, and this is where we're going to import navbar, and then after we're done with that, we'll have import dependencies. And so for anything else that we might need here, if we do authentication, we can have that here. It just keeps it organized, right? Like if you're saying, oh no, where's this thing? This just helps you kind of keep track of that. And I can uncomment this. And if we go back to our currently built app, there is our navbar. We have a little bit of scrolling, and that's fine. But I also like that this is kind of in the foreground, because we set the background to fixed, right? So it won't move. And so now we've got this other stuff in the front of it. If we wanted to down the road, so this would be how you would make it like a parallax effect eventually. This way we can, have multiple things moving past a background. And that's pretty neat. And then other cool trick would be if you set breakpoints vertically. This is a fun CSS trick. If you set vertical breakpoints, you can say, if we're past this part of the page, then change the background. That's how you get those backgrounds that, like, you might have one picture for like the first third of your homepage. You get past a part that says, please buy my product. And that's a different picture of the background of like a child enjoying your product. Wow, that must be a really great, whatever you're selling. Because the children like it. Everybody likes children. Maybe not everybody likes children. I like children. I was a teacher in the public schools for a long time. I taught elementary school music. Anyways, but yeah, so there you go. So that's how you would do that kind of thing. A nice little parallax is what it's called. If you're like, I want to make that again, look up parallax. Great. So we've got all that, and our navbar exists. Let's go ahead and spend a bit more time with our navbar. Let's actually make this kind of nice. Let's actually do some stuff. This is going to take a bit though. So now we've done this much. It's been 24 minutes. We're gonna take a break. Go ahead and get a drink of water or something. Stand up, get your wiggles out. We used to call those brain breaks in my classroom. But yeah, so that's where we're at for that. And pretty cool. We've made some components. This is already starting to look kind of application-y. We haven't even moved any data around yet. We haven't even done anything cool with JavaScript. We've just displayed some stuff. So anyways, that's basically what we got. I'll see you in the next lecture.